there's no more motivated seller than someone who just murdered someone, right? They're going to be highly motivated to get their house.
How to target murderers in Class 101. Hey everybody, this is Daniel Moore with Propelio, and I got Connor Steinbrueck here from the Investor Army. And there's been a lot of rumors going around DFW for the past year about a particular property that was bought and sold that happened to have a dead body in the backyard. And I just found out not too long ago that you had a direct tie with that chain of title or through that deal. And I've heard a lot of things over the past year about what was going on there, and I didn't know half of what you've told me so far. Can you get a little bit of background on what your involvement was with that deal and what happened with it?
Yeah, so we're gonna kind of bring this to light here because this is the first time we actually talked about this anywhere, really.
I've heard rumors and rumors and rumors from this person to this person to this person, and I didn't know that you were part of the deal.
Yeah, man. So I thought this kind of blow over, but every time it gets brought up, and so like we're gonna talk about it today and tell you what happened. So it was obviously it was an interesting situation. So we were contacted by an individual who wanted to sell their house, right? So it was a Craigslist lead, and I went over there, and the homeowner wasn't there. And so I literally was about to leave, and I did drive off, and he calls me, he says, Connor, you need to come back to the house. I'm coming now. And so I got back, he still wasn't there at the property. So he's like, go on into the house, right? And so I was like, okay. And I walk in, it was the weirdest feeling you've ever felt in a property. He had foil all over the walls. He had, it was a weird property.
Like you're talking about like not the windows.
I'm talking like you walk in and the whole house was like covered by either blankets or kitchen cooking foil. And
so like some Better Call Saul type of stuff where like everything just completely wrapped in aluminum foil?
Yeah, and we'll talk about the reason why here in
crazy.
Just a second. So, and it's pitch black in there because it's like, it was noon on a sunny day, but when you're in there, it's completely dark. And so I'm walking through this house, I get in the back room, and literally, I'm typing a text message, and I feel like someone's attacking me, and I like brace myself thinking I'm getting charged, and hair on my arms are going up. And
so here you are in a dark room in a house covered in aluminum foil.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, you feel like you're being attacked.
Exactly, and this is why you never know what you're going to get in real estate. And so it literally felt like someone was screaming at me as loud as they could, but there's no noise coming out, and I was like, I got to get out of here. So I ran out, right? And so as soon as I got out of the house, I had a partner of mine call me who's a big time investor here in DFW. Obviously, we're not going to name names, but I'm like, hey, have you ever had like some type of paranormal interaction or something? I'm like, because I've never had anything like this happen. And he's
so while you were in the house, I mean, obviously you felt like that was happening, but you didn't see anybody. You
Nothing.
didn't, you felt like somebody was screaming at you, but it was just weird.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like if I stood next to you and you had like a blindfold on, but I was like right up on you, you could feel that someone was on you.
Wow.
And so it was crazy, to happen in the middle of the day, right? So I'm telling this other investor, he's like, Connor, don't tell people this. You're gonna look crazy, right? And so, like I told another individual who called me a little bit later, I'm like, this has just happened. Have you ever heard of anything like this? He's like, Connor, you're gonna look crazy. Don't tell anybody this. Well, here's what ended up happening. So we ended up getting this deal done. And a few months later.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Like you're talking about, so the seller wasn't there at the time.
No.
He showed up, I guess, 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes later or something like that? Or what happened there?
Yeah, so finally he shows up and I forget anything happened, right? So I go back into business mode because this is the middle of the day. It's just, I thought maybe something weird happened, that I was passing out or something was wrong with me, right? And so I get the house under contract at a really good price. It looks like
Can you tell me a little bit about the seller? What was going on there? I mean,
what
was his personality like? I mean, we've got aluminum foil all over the house. We're not talking about typical people here, or are we talking about typical people?
No, I mean, like, they're out of a psych ward, right? So he's coming up talking about aliens, and he's talking about Google's tapping him. So that's why I was like, maybe that's why he's got the foil up, right? Because he's trying to block radio waves. Okay. So I'm like, this, if you're in the business long enough, you're going to see the other side of the world that runs in the shadows. You're going to go into hoarder houses. You're going to see stuff that you probably never thought you're going to see. And so, and I'm sitting here at business trying to make money, so I'm just
So what's up with the house? I mean, this is the Bishop Arts District, correct?
$200+ square foot area.
Yeah, for those that don't know about the Bishop Arts District, I mean, it's a 1930s, 1940s neighborhood full of nice older homes that are being renovated up to that $200 to $300 a square foot range. Am I right or wrong on that?
Yeah. And so what happened was it was a mix between a duplex and a single family house, and my goal was to convert it from a duplex into a single family, but none of the lenders would look at it because there was no duplex comps. Nobody wanted to look at it. It was in a historic area. But I had the house under contract at $145,000, I believe, and it's looking at $500,000
Right.
and only maybe 100,000 to get there. So I'm gonna make like 70, 80 grand more wholesaling this house, or if I can get a loan to do it, make a lot more than that. And so we had a bunch of title issues, but nobody wanted to lend on it, so I was just gonna try to wholesale it. So I had one buyer go through the house, and basically the homeowner started panicking and wouldn't let me show it again. So I sold the house to that individual. There were some issues with the closing.
You sold it. Now, when you say you sold it, did you assign that, or did you actually double close it, or
No.
how did that transaction proceed?
It was just an assignment,
Okay.
basic assignment. So it was like a $15,000 right around there assignment.
Okay.
And so there's a title issue, right? So there was some type of mechanics lien that they were paying off, and he was paying it off incrementally over the years. Yet he didn't know anything about this $40,000 lien or whatever it was. It was something big like that. And I couldn't get him to give me any answers because we were getting held up at closing. And so this is already weird. Like, why does he know about the property, right? So it was already kind of a little bit weird. And then at closing, he shows up and literally had shaved his head on his own. He had bald spots in the back, like little spots of hair that he missed. He had grown his beard out. And when we get to closing and he realizes he's going to get a cashier's check or a bank wire, he literally freaked out, stood up, started kicking chairs around, blaming me, saying I'm a fraud. I pay cash for houses. Because we'll get to the reason why all this is playing out here in a second, but he thought he was going to get the cash then. And so finally the deal goes through, and like 6 weeks later, I get a call from a homicide detective here in Dallas, and I'm like, okay, is this really real right now? And basically they found a dead body at the property from the individual that basically bought the house last. And so basically what had happened was the guy that sold me the property murdered the guy living in the property.
The owner of the property.
Owner of the property.
So the guy that you bought the property from
Yep.
was posing as the owner of the property.
Correct.
That he had actually just killed and buried in the backyard.
Correct. Yeah.
Welcome to real estate, everybody.
Yeah, this is a common deal, so you can learn about this in our homestay program. How to,
How to deal with your owner that's killed somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's no more motivated seller than someone who just murdered someone, right? They're going to be highly motivated to get their
How to target murderers in class 101.
And so, I mean, that's why he freaked out the title company, because he realized he had just beat the title company process and sold the house, but now he had to get past the bank to get the money. So that's why he had a literally meltdown. And so I pick up the phone and I call my friend investor. We're not gonna drop names. I'm like, hey, remember when you told me I was crazy about that guy or the ghost or whatever happened? Yeah, there's a guy murdered in there 2 weeks before that. So what do you think now? Do you think
in the same room that you were staying in?
In the same room, from what we understand. So they found the guy in the backyard, and so they had some relationship going on. We don't need to get into that too much, but he had all access to his documents. Okay. So he had access to literally 30 years, 40 years of documents that only a homeowner would have. Right. So when you're going through this process in the live moment, at the title company, they're thinking, this isn't going to match up, right? And so I thought what had happened was he had flashed that money around because he got a decent amount of money, and I thought he was flashing money around. Someone took the money from him, panicked, and they fought at his house, murdered him real quick, buried him in the backyard. But what actually happened was he had murdered the real homeowner, stole his identity, represented who he was as that individual, and went and sold the house and took out a bunch of credit cards in his name.
So you got this homicide detective calling you now.
Yep.
What'd that make you feel like? I'm sure that you weren't prepared for that.
No, it was awesome. It was exactly what I wanted to have happen in a normal day. So,
hey, Mr. Homicide Detective, how are you doing today? I can't wait to come meet you.
So I really didn't believe it, to be honest, first off. So first off, when they said they found a body, I'm thinking they found like bones from like the 50s or something old. I'm not thinking this was literally like within the past few months that something happened, because you're not thinking this is actually going to happen to me, right? So I get called down to Dallas Homicide, and I'm getting interviewed, and I'm trying to explain to them, no, nothing is all on the up and up. I sold this house without owning it. I sold the paperwork on this property for $15,000, and I only owned it or only controlled it for a day. But
try explaining an assignment to a homicide detective.
And they have no idea, because if you're not in real estate, you really don't understand what we do. So they're looking at each other like this guy's a suspect now, right? So
that sounds fishy. You made 15 grand in one day, so yep, you're high on the list of people we're going to be talking to.
Yeah, so it's not a good feeling. So I'm sitting here, and all that's going through my mind is all those, TV shows talking about these guys wrongfully got put in jail for 30 years, and so I'm just like literally having nightmares, right? And then even after I kind of was off the radar as a suspect, I was thinking, what happens if this guy gets caught and he already murdered someone? What if he tries to save his, himself and tries to say, oh, well, Connor had something to do with it. So I had all these racing thoughts all the time for a long time is not a. It's fun to talk about now. It wasn't fun to go through, to be honest.
I mean, have you seen that Netflix special, Making a Murderer? I mean, it's basically where they take an innocent man and just like, you're the murderer now.
Exactly.
Congratulations, you've awarded that title.
Yeah, because they have to pin it on someone to close the case. And so that was my big concern, is like somehow, because besides the title company and the individual he worked at the bank, we were the last points of contact for him.
How long were you going through that investigation process?
I mean, they didn't catch the guy for like 9 or 10 months. It was like almost a year later.
So did they like wipe you off of the suspect list, or at least drop you down a couple of notches, or what do you think happened there?
No, I mean, pretty quickly they let me know that I wasn't really kind of being watched. I mean, they did their research, found out that I was public out there. Right. You know, they looked into it, phone records. I mean, the FBI, like they got all the photos. You know, it was an interesting experience. That's the least to say, right?
Just so that y'all know, Propelio does not condone murder.
Yeah.
Somebody in the background's kind of playing some games over here, but I mean,
we're not promoting marketing to the murder list.
Yeah, we're not trying to do that. But what is strange is you get into this business and you don't expect something like this to happen. This isn't like, oh, well, I'm about to go meet the guy that murdered the owner of this house and I'm going to contract with them. I mean, how do you prepare for something like that? You don't. I mean, that's really the answer to it, is you need to be prepared for what comes at you, but sometimes there's things that you just can't be prepared for. Yeah. And it sounds like you got put into a situation that no one could have been prepared for. I mean, we're dealing with ghosts, we're dealing with dead bodies, we're dealing with the FBI and the detectives, and I mean, but all in all, on the other side of this transaction, you know, how did this play out for you when it was all said and done with?
I mean, we still made a decent assignment fee, and you know, fortunately for me, I wasn't in, because we did an assignment contract. I never took title to the property. The only thing I felt bad about was, you know, the individuals that got caught up on the back end that own the property. Because,
so was it the person you sold it to?
No. So unfortunately, I could have made a lot of money on this property, and in hindsight, I kind of look back, I wouldn't have wanted to profit in this way anyway, so I'm kind of glad it was still relatively low, because if I'd made $100 grand, you know, I'd always be feeling it kind of weighing over me. But after I brought the first buyer through as a wholesale buyer, the guy that, you know, clearly he was worried, you know, he buried the body like in the backyard, right? So he kind of panicked and shut me down. He wouldn't let me show the property anymore.
So he wouldn't let you bring anybody else in?
So I couldn't bring anybody else in. So I only had one buyer come in, so I had to sell it to him at that price. And so literally, before we knew any of this was going on, the guy that bought it from me put it on the MLS and sold it for like 50 grand in a day.
So hold on a second. Did he contract it with you and then immediately market it on the MLS, or did he close with you?
He closed.
Oh, so he closed with you, and then he marketed it on the MLS. Because I know some people that will contract and market the MLS without ever actually closing, so this was not the case.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've heard about people doing that, getting a power of attorney and putting it on MLS. Yeah, but he definitely, he closed on it, put it on the MLS, and I find out like 2 days later it sold, and that he's making like 50 grand, and I was not happy at the time, because I'm thinking I should have made 80 grand, I'm only making 15. I was not happy with the seller.
You left some money on the table?
Oh my gosh, everybody knows you never get what you want on any deal. You're always thinking, how could I make more?
Right.
And so I'm thinking I let a huge opportunity slip by, thinking I got 10-15% of what I should have, which is basically what happened. But how am I going to show the house to someone who can't get in? And it's over $100,000 rehab. So then the person that bought it from him, from what I understand, was the one that was flipping the house. And they basically, after a few weeks, they started having a smell come from the yard. They dug it up, and they found a dead body back there. And it blew up huge over Dallas News. I had radio stations and news stations, everybody calling me, and I had 2 different avenues to go, right? Either talk to them. And so I'm talking to the detective, like, what do I do, right? He's like, well, you can do whatever you want, but I advise you to probably not. And then I have half the mentors and gurus of the world, or people, other investor friends, saying, do not talk to the television, do not talk to the media. And then the other half saying, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You have to go on TV and get like a, you know, your branded shirt and be on
Connor buys houses.
you know, people are dying to sell me my house, or sell you the house, right? So.
Oh man, that's rough.
Yeah.
That is rough.
Yeah.
Only a guru would say that.
Yeah, I mean, so I basically decided, you know, I'm not going to talk to anybody, and it was months of people just contacting me every day trying to find out what was going on, because I didn't want to say something or do something and interfere in an investigation. I mean, you kind of paralyzed. You don't know what to do. Who do you advise? Do I get an attorney and start cranking huge lawyer fees? Like, nothing's going to prepare you. So like, this world that we live in is a unique world. You could literally wake up today, tomorrow go look at a house, or today go look at a house, get it under contract, with a murderer, with a dead body in the backyard, and that's something. I mean, it's not going to happen a lot. Probably never for most people, but it can happen.
I don't really think there's any advice that you could really give in that scenario, but is there, being from your shoes, something you could recommend to somebody else? I mean, he made it through title. I don't know how he made it through title, made it through notaries, made it through all that other type of stuff. Do you have any, maybe recommendations for things to watch out for, such as murderers?
If you're taking title, always get insurance, right, for one. Because he ended up getting paid out, but it took almost a year before they identified the body because insurance pushed back on it. I mean, the best advice, guys, be careful when you go out there. This is not the first time. I mean, we've ended up in situations where you got, these vacant houses, these houses sitting on MLS or public for sale by owner properties. If a squatter knows it's vacant, they're going to sneak in there. These people are doing drugs. You should come in real loud. Announce yourself if you're going in these areas, because you don't know what's going to happen. If you walk in a house and corner someone in there, literally it's a risky situation.
I mean, this is not Propelio saying do this or anything like that, but I personally, in my investing business, I carry all the time.
Yeah.
I have a license to carry, I carry a pistol with me, and if I know I'm going into a vacant property by myself, I've got my hand where I need my hand to be. So that way, because there's been times where I've walked into plenty of houses, and I'm not a big man, but I'm not a small man either, where I've been kind of concerned about what was going on. You get people that are on drugs occupying these houses, and you catch them at the wrong time, and things don't go the way you want them to go. I've gone into houses where I've been jumped. I've had some issues in the past, so
Well,
you need to be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, it's good we're talking about this because most people don't think about it. Everybody's all focused on the, rainbows and unicorns and the good side of business, but it is risky, especially if you're playing low price point properties. And a number of times we've gone into houses where if the stairway is right by the front door and you walk in and they're upstairs, how are they going to come down the stairway? So we've had a couple of times where people were literally, you can hear them upstairs and you just back out. You don't even mess with it, because we've had guns pulled on us, knives pulled on us. So just be aware of it.
I did one where walking into the house, as soon as I walked into the house, I announced myself. I announced myself very loudly when I'm walking into a vacant property, so I don't surprise somebody. I very loudly say, "Hey, I'm here. If there's anybody here, just let you know I was here to take a look at the house." And I'm very loud when I'm going through those properties. But as I go through and I'm doing just that, all of a sudden we've got a bee swarm of people coming out the second story windows. Like literally people just diving out of the second story windows, and it was being used as a drug house.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a good point to make. I mean, I had a drug addict attack me at one property. I still got a decent scar across my forehead where the guy bit me. It was just like bit me on my forehead. So
it's a crazy world. Like people, because you're stepping into a life that you don't know what you're walking into. Like,
you never know what the situation is between the sellers themselves as well, especially if you're dealing with divorces and stuff. It gets crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like if they ever ask, you pay cash for houses, so you're bringing the cash with you, or they start going down that route. Like if they're ever leaning towards like you have the cash with you, right? I wouldn't even show up, because what if they're planning to jump you? What if you don't even show up with a lot of money, but that may even make them more mad.
It makes them even madder,
if you don't have anything. So just use your common sense. I mean, sort of survival instinct. Just if it feels wrong, like usually it's wrong. To be honest,
walk away from it. It's not worth it. Just walk away from it.
Yeah.
So, going through what we just talked about, we definitely made light of a serious situation that occurred, and we did that for the reason of kind of showing you what some of the possibilities out there are, what some of the things that have happened. And this has been a huge rumor in the Metroplex for well over a year. And I thought it was good for us to bring this in and kind of just show you exactly what happened. And I know many lives were touched by this, and there was a lot of people that, were hurt by this situation. And it is not our attempt to make fun of that or laugh about that. It's just kind of opening up the scenario of this is what could happen, and this is actually what did happen. I mean, I'm pretty sure that during this time that you were going through this, you weren't laughing at all.
No, it's a good story to look back at. Where there's certain teaching points, plus it's entertaining, but at the same time, you never want to make light of a situation, but this has been a big issue here in DFW, so we figured we'd tell it. But you're going to be out there in the field with the human element. You're going to come across people who are in financial distress, people who have real drug addictions. You're going to see things that you probably never thought you'd see. And so you just have to be aware of that and be respectful of that every time you come into a situation. So when you're out there, guys, just be aware, be safe, be respectful of who you work with. Always do what you say you're going to do the right thing, act with the right ethical nature, and you're going to be successful in this business. But I mean, a lot of people, unfortunately, were affected by this,
emotionally. I mean, a lot of people I knew.
Emotionally, financially. It was not a quick fix. It was stressful for me. It was not something I'd like to go back and deal with again. But Yeah, so we just want to clear things up and let you know that.
Make sure we didn't want anybody thinking we were making fun of them or the situation itself. It was just kind of a recollection of a time that you went through and kind of putting it out there.
And just to be safe out there, because you never know what you're walking into.
I appreciate you taking the time to tell us about that. If anybody wanted to reach out to you, though, I know you've got a really good YouTube channel where you're giving a lot of strong information to real estate investors. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we got the Investor Army channel. So, I made a goal to put out 1,000 videos over the next coming years on there. So we're putting out videos on mostly like wholesaling and overall business entrepreneurship. Things that are going to make you successful. Like, we're not just going to talk about basic, go get an absentee owner list and mail postcard, right? So there's lots of YouTube channels for that. We're talking about actual day-to-day things that are going to help you in business, like the one we just put out on credit cards and how to make sure you're playing the credit game correctly. So go check us out there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. This was Daniel Propelio and Connor Steinbrueck with Investor Army. And if you ever want to, get some more information like that, follow us on Facebook, search for Propelio, YouTube, Propelio.com. You got any websites that people should be looking for?
You can just go to investorarmy.com. And guys, if you got deals, we buy. He buys too. We're actually real investors. I know a lot of people doing what we're doing don't do that, but it's part of the reason why we do it.
So, very much appreciated. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you saw, make sure to subscribe. Have a good day.
All right, thanks, Dana.
You really have to look at the policy type. Are you getting into a vacant dwelling, a builder's risk policy, a homeowner's policy, or a landlord policy?